This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the US. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We're back on Let the Record Show. This is Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. We had with us for the first two segments of the show Tim Hoefer, the President and CEO of the Empire Center for Public Policy, a very thoughtful and brilliant commentator and an analyst of the problems that face New York City, New York State, and throughout the state and the suburbs, particularly Long Island and upstate. Now, we're switching gears. We're going to a broader canvas now. And I'll tell you what's been bothering me, and this has been bothering me since October 7th, Jesse, where you had a slaughter of innocent people, 1,200 or 1,400 people, men, women, children, infants. They cut their throats, they chopped their heads off, they put them in ovens alive, they put tires around their bodies and set them aflame. They mowed them down with machine guns. They raped the women, they dragged the naked bodies across the street. And then a funny thing happens, Jesse. Right after this happens, and all the sympathies should be given to the state of Israel and the people of Israel, within a day or two, you start having these massive demonstrations, pro-Hamas, so-called pro-Palestinian, but really pro-Hamas, saying, from the river to the sea, which anybody, except for Tlaib, that idiot, who is a voice of the Muslim Brotherhood and a voice of terrorism and hatred, from the river to the sea means the extermination of the state of Israel, Jesse. It means the extermination of every Jewish person in that community, in that state. And what is this Muslim Brotherhood? It was founded in the 1920s and 1930s in Egypt. It has a single goal. It is domination of the world by an Islamic regime which tolerates no other religion, no freedom of thought, no freedom of action. Everything is governed by this radical sect of Islam, which they impose, by the way, on their fellow Muslims. Because if you don't believe the way they want you to believe, they'll chop your head off too, or throw you off a roof, or mow you down with machine gun fire, or drag your naked body through the streets. There is no tolerance. It is the worst imperialistic colonialism that you can imagine. It's full of hate, anger, terror, and what's going on all across the world, Jesse, city after city. And in this country, you see the American flag being ripped down, the Israeli flag being ripped down. There's no respect for another point of view. And this all started happening, Jesse, before Israel even went in with their incursion to Gaza to try to take out Hamas. What say you?
What occurred on October 7th, and from that point, has been nothing more than a terrorist attack against our friends of Israel. There is no other position to have if you are someone who cares about society and the rule of law, other than to stand with Israel and the people of Israel. They have a right to defend themselves just the same way as the United States had a right to defend itself from the most recent attack on her shores and September 11th in 2001. This war is not like none other. This is barbaric. This war is different to others because it comes at a time when the fault lines that divide the Middle East are rumbling. And for at least the last couple of decades, there's been a serious rift in the regions and fractured geopolitical landscape. And part of that problem is the appeasement of these type of acts, and also the appeasement of the sponsors of these type of acts. And I'm speaking of Iran, and speaking of terrorist groups that have had monies released by the United States and sanctions released from the United States. The biggest one we speak about on a regular basis is the Iran deal that allowed $150 billion of assets to be released to Iran. And then when we do hostage exchanges for $6 billion and such, those are monies going directly that fund not only the war in the Gaza, terrorist and proxy wars against U.S. soldiers and those democracies and republics that are allies of the United States, they are being funded with weapons that are funding the war in Ukraine by Russia. There is something seriously wrong with those academic institutions that encourage these types of demonstrations in support of Hamas, and then taking the victim, the true victim here, Israel, and trying to paint them as the bad guy. That's absolutely wrong. There are babies that were beheaded, babies in cages. There were women raped. There were people, innocent lives in the middle of the night that were dragged through streets. There was videos being taken and being distributed across this network of Hamas, showing how they're supportive of it and being told to do that and being told to target civilians, not soldiers. We have a problem with our society. If this is what we believe is right and just, it is not right and just for me. It is not right and just for common sense Americans and freedom-loving humans, people of society. This is an attack on not just Israel. It's an attack on our Western society, and America better wake up and not play the role of appeaser.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor, or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve. It's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because just yesterday, Jesse, once again, the Biden administration showed that it is the appeaser-in-chief. They're once again giving an extension on the waiver of the sanctions for another $10 billion to Iran to free up their money. And what do they do with that money? They do whatever they want with their money. They're proudly saying, the Ayatollahs are proudly saying, we'll do what we want. There are no restrictions. And what do they do with that money, as you correctly point out? They feed the terrorist machinery. They pay the terrorist militias. They give them the munitions. They do everything they possibly can. They make donations to American institutions and European institutions so that they create fifth columns, thought leaders, influencers in major think tanks, in universities, in the media, in the cultural centers, in the business centers, to go along with their program and to blame the victim rather than to blame the aggressor. So they use the money in a very clever way to shape the narrative, to shape the fight that's going on. And as you correctly point out, this is a fight for Western civilization. Western civilization cannot survive if we allow these people to keep doing this. And let me say this to you, which has me very upset. And you and I have talked about this in detail. You and I agree that it already exists in the fifth column in this country. The fifth column is an expression that was used during World War II about foreign infiltrators infiltrating our country. Because of the border policy, people are coming in, we don't know who they are. Cartel members, terrorists, foreign agents, they're coming in. They're bringing in the fentanyl, they're bringing in munitions, they have military-aged Chinese and Mideasterners coming in. We're being overrun by these people, and the Biden administration refuses to stop it. Now, there was an interesting discussion on last night's show on Katz and Cosby, and Alan Dershowitz, professor at Harvard Law School, who's a friend and brilliant man, he and I have a fundamental disagreement. Alan believes that you can't impeach Biden for the failure to uphold the immigration laws or protect the border, that it's not within the scope of the Constitution. I submit to you, when we're being overrun by an influx of illegal immigration, which is causing a threat, an existential threat to this country, that we damn well have grounds to impeach Biden for failing to uphold his oath of office, which is to protect and defend this country, Jesse, the Constitution of the United States, and its laws. And to add to the fifth column problem, you have people in the Department of Justice, Department of Defense, Department of State, who are apologists for the Iranians, who carry out the agenda, and they're stooges for the Iranian agenda. And if we don't think we have a fight on our hands, because Iran is the enemy, these other guys are just the surrogates, they're the proxies. Ultimately, we have to hold them to task. And if we don't hold them to task, the war that ultimately has to be fought will be worse. Because just imagine, Jesse, if we did not confront them and they did get nuclear weapons.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced, specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor, or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.